Hi, my name is Jason. I currently live in LA, and I'm excited to answer a couple of questions for He Said, She Said for Recess. The first question is from Elena in Florida. Her question reads, I just moved to America from another country, but finding it difficult to adjust. Have you ever faced culture shock, and how did you deal with it? My story was that I grew up overseas in Indonesia for 18 years, so basically my whole school career. And it was rough coming here for college, moving back here for college. I tried to do my own research. I actually did watch a lot of movies, research, read books, watched TVs, and I would even every so often come here for vacation. And even then, coming here, I still faced a lot of culture shock. You may ask why. I think it's because, for us, we've grown up in a different country, in a different world, even, and just how we perceive things, how our experiences have shaped us, our environment has shaped us and how we think. And so it's going to be very different for you to move to a whole new environment and to kind of assimilate. It's never going to be an easy transition. There's always going to be a lot of painstaking moments where you feel like you're misunderstood, that you don't belong, and that you kind of want to go back to an environment where you're comfortable. I think that just human nature is that we want to be in a place where we're comfortable. And that's why we sleep on beds that are comfortable, that are soft. And so it's first step is to recognize that everyone goes through culture shock when they first move to a different environment. Now, for me, I first faced culture shock kind of going into, or not necessarily in the sense that I was insulted at a specific moment or anything, but just really going through classes and then seeing what people were talking to and not being able to hold a conversation with my classmates and with my peers from my internships. That's when I realized, it's a completely different environment, completely different etiquette, and just how people behave here compared to how people behave back home. And so for me, how I kind of overcame that was through observation. I am a kinesthetic learner, and so it takes me it takes me a lot to kind of get out of my comfort zone and to actually learn things through doing. I can't just sit down and observe. I can't just sit down and listen to podcasts or anything. I have to do it. And so for me, I had to push myself out of my comfort zone and actually start conversations and push through all these awkward moments that I might have with my classmates or my peers. And at first, I was failing here and there. It would be a lot of awkward silences, a lot of me just nodding along and then excusing myself and going back to my comfort zone of hanging out with the international students. However, I started realizing and kind of noticing in classes when how people would interact with each other, how people would interact at a restaurant or with a barista or a bartender, and that's when I kind of realized, that's how people say this way, or how people approach this issue this way, that this is how they explain it, and this is how they cultivate relationships here. And so for me, I just really tried to take everything in, and then kind of like put it in my head and apply it. And so I would practice these things with, at first, my classmates that I felt comfortable enough with, and then I would ask questions with my mentors and kind of push myself through all these moments that I didn't feel comfortable in, and eventually it worked out for me, and I was able to kind of assimilate into the culture. I mean, it did take a couple years, but everyone has their own journey. Everyone's on their own journey, and I think that's the most important thing, is that you can't be disheartened if, say, you're 3 months into just observing, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not made for this. I can't assimilate. I don't feel comfortable. I want to go home to an environment that I'm familiar with. No, you have to understand that everyone progresses at a different speed. You process things differently, and so you just have to keep chugging along. Don't get disheartened, and know that eventually you'll be able to find a common ground, and that you'll eventually understand the culture and be able to assimilate with it. It's kind of like changing your mentality of everything's wrong, everything's not going to work out, and changing it into a positive mindset of, this is an opportunity for me to grow as a person, to kind of broaden my culture and kind of broaden my worldview in a way. In a sense, I hope that helps. Second question is from Marcus in LA, and his question reads, have you ever felt misunderstood or discriminated against in your past, and do you still face it today? How do you stay positive in these situations? So, again, I think this question is a great question. It kind of ties in back with Elena's question. I think when you're culture shocked, it's easy for us to kind of think of it as, how dare they say this, or how dare they say that. A personal example is just walking around a house in shoes. I grew up in a house where we would get yelled at if we wore shoes. So it was hard for me to kind of come here and have people come over to my apartment, my dorm room, and wear their shoes. And it didn't really click for me until I realized, you know what? I've never told people to take off their shoes. I've never explained why I felt that it was wrong for people to come into a house with their shoes on, and I realized that's kind of an issue here too. It's not an issue on them because they don't know better. They aren't aware of the different cultures, and it's not their fault. It's just as if we grew up in our home for 20 years and then have someone come into our home. Obviously, we'll have to tell them what to do, what our culture is. And so I think if we flip it around that way, our mindset that way, and see it as, oh, this is not them doing this out of spite, or this is not them just choosing to ignore us or not kind of accept our opinions or whatnot, but it's because there's just a difference in perceptions, or a difference in how we see things and perceive things and kind of compute things in our heads. And so if you think about it as an opportunity to teach someone about our culture and bring it up where you can be comfortable with one another, with your coworkers, with your peers, your friends, and just be in a place where you both understand that, hey, there's differences in us. Let's work this out. I think that's going to help a lot. I think if you ask any married couple, they're always continuously learning more and more about each other. And I think that's not just for married people. It's just for people all over the world. Everyone perceives things differently. Everyone internalizes things differently. And we just have to remember the fact that no one is going to be able to read your minds and understand you if you don't say anything. And so if you do feel misunderstood, change your mindset. Don't take it as a negative, but take it as a positive, as an opportunity to teach someone and inform someone about your culture and your mindset. And trust me, by you opening up about your situation and how you think things, if the person you're opening up to is a decent person, is a decent human being, they would understand, and they might even in turn open up their mindset and kind of explain themselves why they think certain ways. And that's how you build relationships. That's how you build rapport and build that communication that people need, especially in today's age. Everyone needs to be able to communicate well and communicate ideas, thoughts, emotions, and it's just communication is such an important thing, and I think it's not something that you can take lightly. I think everyone needs to be able to communicate their thoughts in order to kind of progress in the world. And so hopefully this has been helpful to you too. Yeah, I rambled on for a bit, but I hope in the past 10 minutes or so that you guys have been able to pick up something from what I said. I am still on my journey as it is. I'm still trying to learn more and more about the people around me, about my environment, about myself and my culture, and I'm still trying to soak in as much information as I can and kind of put it in the back of my head and use it. And so, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope you have a great day.